Hi, everyone. This is Phil Yaeger, and I'm here with Ron Premuroso, who's my colleague, my friend, and my co-teacher in the Yaeger CPA review course. And we're going to share some stories about our studying for the exam. All right. I'll just tell you that the first thing was I waited 7 years before I took the exam. And the reason for that is, quite honestly, accounting wasn't my really cup of tea in school. And I said, I'm never going to take that CPA exam, but I got a job teaching accounting at a community college. So I figured I better get a CPA. So the students will look at me and say, oh, this guy's a CPA. He's a good accountant. And I feel he'll be a good teacher. So what I did was, all right, there was only 2 courses in the Washington, D.C. area when I was studying for the exam. We didn't have those other courses, okay? And what I did was I called the Maryland Association of CPAs, and I said to them, all right, here's the name of the course, course A, course B. Which course would you recommend? And they say, well, we can't recommend courses, but we can tell you that course A, all right, has 430 people in it. And course B has 36 people. And I said, well, I guess by the fact of other numbers, the 436 must be better. All right. So I signed up, paid for it, and it was given at a big auditorium at one of the local universities in DC. And the guy who taught the course, all right, who's the owner, he was really the teacher of, we didn't call it financial accounting back then, it was practice and theory. And he came in and he had a little desk there. He sat down, all right, sat down at the desk, and he had this microphone in his hand, all right? Now, this was his microphone, but the wires on the microphone were going all over the place, And I thought, gee, maybe he'll electrocute himself. But no, in fact, I called it the wounded mic, all right? And while he was sitting there, he would say this. You ready? He would do this. Smack his lips, all right? 4 hours of that smacking, okay? All right, well, he would give us handouts, and by the handouts, he created. There was no CPA review books back then, all right? Of course, he published all the notes. And the funny part is, to save space and get more on the paper, all right, when we had the business law, he didn't say Phil sold to Ron. He said P sold to R, okay? And you're reading this and you can't remember who P and R are. And sometimes they had another third party with also another R. So it'd be P sold to R and R sold to R, And I thought, oh God, this is a real hatchet and saw operation. I'm telling you, the guy didn't want to spend anything. Well, I said to myself, I'm gonna have to put in a lot of time studying, which you have to do anyway. So I went every day, all right, there was a library, a public library. I went there and there was one room I could study in. All right. It was called the Bowie Public Library in Bowie, Maryland. And I studied in the equestrian room because Bowie was known for their horse racing. All right. So I went in there. There was no one there during the day. And I said, I'm going to study every day for about 3-4 hours. And I said, I'm going to do that every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I gave off Friday. Saturday, I went to class, and Sunday, I gave myself a break, all right? But I studied quite a few hours, and I had to juggle it. You don't have to juggle now. We had to take all 4 parts, either in May or November, all right? You only have to take 1 part at a time, all right? But you don't have deadlines like we did. So I tell people, all right, being that you're taking 1 part and you don't have a deadline, we have to take it, people without a deadline are going to study forever. And I say, for example, if you study financial accounting, it should be more than 3 months. So, all right, if I start studying today, January 1st, for example, all right, I'm going to take the exam, all right, no more than 4 months after January 1st. And I'm going to make that and book that date, okay? Therefore, you have a definite date you have to be ready for. And you're only studying 1 part at a time. So that's a good thing. And, I guess what I used to do was, the CPA didn't release the questions back then. So the gentleman who owned the course, he made up true and false questions. Now, interestingly enough, We didn't have true and false, like you don't have true and false today. We had multiple choice answers. But when we had multiple choice on the exam, all right, this is what they had. You had A, B, C, D, E, all right? And E was none of the above. And I remember, all right, we had 20 multiple choice, 20 questions on quantitative analysis. Now I have to tell you, I didn't know what that quantitative analysis was, all right? And, I answered them. And we were able to get the answers, all right, that were published by companies within a week or two, because we could take the exam booklet out with us, all right? Now, that exam, I remember, I did very poorly on that, but 17 of the 20, the answers were none of the above, all right? That was nasty.
Yes.
But, I studied the best I can, and I didn't pass the first time. I only passed one part, but back then you had to pass at least 2 parts, the condition, and get a 50 on the other 2 parts you didn't pass. Or you could pass 3, all right? But if you pass 3, you had to get a 50 on the 4th part, all right? Because if you didn't, you lost the first 3, all right? So it wasn't that easy, but I got the results. They obviously weren't favorable. Now, unlike today, all right, when the students get the results, all right, a lot of them will call up and say, I failed, and I'm an A student. And they mention some of these schools they're A students at, okay? And I say, well, that's why you probably didn't pass. But they also say, oh, I didn't study enough. So I said, yeah, you have to study. You have to set up a schedule, all right? And, this was the difference. When I got the scores, I had no one to call, all right? What I had to do is decide what I'm going to do. And what I decided to do was go back to that same course and do the remaining, whatever he still wasn't covered, all right? And just the fact that I was in that room, it kept me in the study mode, the student mode, all right? And I thought his notes were terrible, by the way. And I got textbooks, and I studied statement of cash flow out of my intermediate book. And I studied business, it was consolidations back then, out of my advanced accounting book, all right? And his notes weren't worth a damn. But as a result of using those textbooks, because he didn't have good books, good notes, I was able to pass the exam the next time, all 4 parts, which shocked me. Now, what's the moral of the story? Well, the moral of the story is you got to study, even if you're doing 1 part at a time. And remember, now we didn't have this. They give you blueprints, and everyone should look at those. And the blueprints are the maps. They're the specific tasks you have to know for each part. Each part has its own blueprints. And if you study the blueprints, that's what the CPA will test you on. Nothing more, nothing less. And we decided to write our own books and integrate the blueprint. So we actually had the blueprints, and then under each blueprint, we explain that blueprint to you. We go over the information. We give you examples, all right? I'm proud to say that we are the only course that does that. No other course. Now, the other courses say they give you the blueprints, but yeah, you can go to aicpa.org. You can print off the blueprints. And what do they do with them? They put the blueprints in the back of their books, but they don't explain them. They figure, hey, we got our textbooks, all right? And they will not take the time to rewrite the textbooks and integrate it, all right? We have the blueprint, the discussion, all right? It's just the old way of the content specification. They all go over business combinations. They go over, statement of cash flow maybe, but they don't mention there are blueprints. In fact, it's interesting. 35% of the candidates don't know what the blueprints are, all right? The courses may not tell them, or they have never heard that from the CPA, which tells me they've been living under a rock for the past 4 years, okay? And also, the other thing, after I passed the exam, I said to myself, there must be a better way of presenting this stuff. So I bought a franchise, CPA review franchise, and I started teaching my own course, okay? All right, and I taught college at the same time. And people would always say to me, you're able to communicate this stuff so well, and you're funny, and we find you're teaching accounting and it's funny. All right. And as a result, I got a tremendous reputation in the Washington, D.C. area. All right. We weren't national. We were just in one location, two locations, because, all right, we had to prepare the people for all four parts. We knew they were taking all four parts. And obviously we concentrate on Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia. All right. So that was the way we ran our course. Stood up there, taught, all right, and took questions. It was great, great interaction, really got to know the people. But when they went computer-based, that was over, because computer-based said one part at a time. We didn't know which part people were going to prepare for. So, all right, we had to do, all right, basically the filming of our live course, put it on video, streaming video, and now we offer all four parts. And, so whatever part you're studying for, you basically apply that part. Don't worry about the other parts. But when you take that exam, that first part, do not wait for the results for the next exam. You got to start studying for the next exam immediately. Okay. It's because of the waiting period, which means you can keep a part for 18 months. But the 18 months does this. The date you take the exam, that's when the 18 months starts. So if you pass the exam and say a certain amount of days have gone by, all right, then you can keep that part for 18 months minus the number of days from the date you took the exam to the date you got the results. All right. That's for every part. So basically, all right, because you're not taking each part at the same time, all right, certain parts can drop off at different times. All right. So remember that. All right. But there's no reason why that should happen. All right. Please remember, a good communicator and a good teacher is one who can explain the material in a manner that you can understand and explain why you're doing it. That's always been my philosophy. And I'm sure, Ron, as I pass it to him now, will tell you the same thing. All right. So that's my story of studying. All right. Go ahead, Ron.
So my story of studying, I graduated from college March of a certain year, and I studied from March of that year until November. I took a review course because there were review courses those days, and Saturday and Sundays from 8 in the morning to 5 at night, I attended a review course. And I was working for KPMG, so went to work Monday through Fridays, right? 8 to 5, 8 to 6. Came home every night and studied my books, and many nights fell asleep with the books in my lap, Philip, to be honest. Okay. It was, so anyway, this lasted from May until November. As Phil just said, we could only take the exam in May and November. So I took it in November. And a couple quick stories there. I was in the Miami Beach Convention Center. There were around a couple thousand people in the convention center, two on each desk. Okay, big, long desks. And unfortunately, the guy that was on my desk was breaking his pencils when I was taking today's equivalent of FAR. Okay, so I had to call the proctor over and got him ejected, okay, from the exam. But of course, they didn't give me any of that time back I lost, right, during that type of outrage, I would call it. And so I took the four parts, like Phil said, Wednesday through Friday, right, 3 days, 2.5 days, and waited for my results, which Phil, right, used to take months to get in those days. Waited for my results, and I was working for KPMG and about 4 or 5 other KPMG assistant auditors or assistants took the exam. And when I got my results, I passed 2 parts. And, I was really, really happy and went to the office and found out all the rest of the candidates passed all 4 parts the first time. Okay. So that kind of dulled my success a little bit, and as Phil said, I redoubled my efforts then for the next 6 months. Now it's November to May, right? I'm studying another 6 months, same materials for the 2 parts I didn't pass, and took those 2 parts over, and fortunately got in the 80s on both of them. So really, Phil, for me, it was more than 12 months. Okay, it was close to 15 months of studying, weekends, going to classes, nights studying after work. It was just nonstop. And I can tell you, it was such a relief, Philip, right? To pass the exam. Okay. It was just a wonderful, really wonderful accomplishment. So like Phil said, nothing comes easy in life, right? We would have 100 million accountants if the CPA exam was easy, okay? And that's the reason we don't. It's just something that takes a lot of personal dedication and effort. Back to you, Phil.
We could have gone in May and November and just take one part, right?
Yes.
No, 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 no. The first time you have to take all 4 parts.
Oh, yeah.
You
The
can't
first
just go
one,
in and
yeah.
take, yeah.
But
yeah.
then after that, I had passed 2, so I only had to take 2 the second time. And like you said, you had to get a 50 minimum on the parts you didn't pass, right? Otherwise, you had to take all 4 parts over again at that time. And there was a window you had to pass the remainder, right, Phil? 12 months, 18 months? I don't
There
remember.
was within 5 tries. They
5
gave us
tries.
5 tries. I remember that.
Yes. Yeah. And I ran into people, Phil, at the Miami Beach Convention Center that were on their 10th or 15th try on trying to pass FAR. Okay, so I'll never forget it. I mean, you could see the number of people struggling on the FAR equivalent at that time, which today, of course, it's still the most challenging exam. Over to you, Phil.
The only thing that you made me think of is I took the exam. It was a big hall like you did in Baltimore, the Baltimore Civic Center.
Yeah.
All right. And every time, all right, the exam was given there, May, November, the circus was in town. Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. All right.
Uh-huh.
Now we were on the upper level of the Civic Center. All right. And the circus was in the lower level. So
Yep.
during the entire exam, we hear the sounds of the elephant. Whoa! And this is going on for like 4 hours.
Unbelievable.
And then
Phil.
across from me, because we sat across from someone else, there was this guy that came in. You could bring in coffee, candy, cigarettes. Those were the days, okay? So this guy, there was like a little cardboard thing between us, so we couldn't see each other's paper, okay?
Yep.
And I saw him. And you know what? They give us a break-even question in cost accounting on hospital beds of a hospital. But
Yep.
I was having trouble with that question. So I kept looking up a lot. And I see this guy, and he had a routine. He had 2 cups of coffee, 2 packs of Lucky Strikes, and candy bars. Okay. Now you got to picture this. Okay. He's continually doing. He's taking a sip of coffee. All right. Puts it down. Then he picks up his candy bar, takes a piece of that. Then he smokes a cigarette. And it's like he went like this. All right. Coffee, candy, cigarette puff, coffee. And he was really annoying me. Really, I mean, the guy, actually, and he's writing away, especially when I'm having a problem. He's writing away. So the exam is over. And I said, hi, at the end, because we all walked out at the same time. And I said to him, you must have done real well on that, huh? I said, how'd you do with that, that break-even hospital beds? And he said, quite honestly, I didn't know anything about it. I just spent time rewriting the question. Okay. Now
that's what he submitted.
Yeah. Then, and he smoked at least 2 packs of cigarettes. I don't think he came back from any retries.
No, probably not. Right.
So anyway, that's my story. Your stories sound similar. And thank you for sharing that. And I think the students will appreciate that. It's sort of, in a way, humorous, but you got to study for this exam, as Ron said.
Yep.
Nothing good comes easy. Okay.
Yep.
Ron, thank you very much for sharing that.
Yep. Pleasure, Phil.
We'll see you again, everyone. Good luck. Keep studying hard.
Bye, everyone.